And we are live with another edition of the Good Taste Podcast. Welcome, everybody. And we only got, one person here with us today, but, he's really the only person on at the moment. Oops, sorry about that.
It's all right.
So, care to introduce yourself, Jordan?
Oh, well, I'm Killer J. I do reviews, and on Draw Rancher, I do movie reviews and other various topics. And recently, I've been playing a lot of games, and a good game you should check out there is Mortal Kombat X.
Yeah. And right now, today we are talking about the SNES and Sega Genesis. But before we start our topic talking, we're gonna say sorry we couldn't, come on last week. I was just tired and busy, and so was everybody else, so we couldn't do one. So we decided, hey, why not do two for this week to make up for it? So today we're gonna be positive and talk about the SNES and Sega Genesis. So, Royal Rumble, you are spared, but tomorrow you are going to get roasted out of oblivion. I know everybody's tired of hearing about wrestling, but sorry, the Royal Rumble is so bad it deserves to be obliterated.
Well, that was just a shit rumble. That's all that was. Fucking abysmal.
Yeah, but let's save it for the
Yeah.
podcast.
All right.
Let's save it for tomorrow. But let's talk about the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. You already did two videos on it, and if you care, moderators can put links, so you can put the link in the chat down below if you want, Jordan. And when the live stream ends and is over, after once the comment section is up, you can put it in the comment section. But he
Okay.
did two great videos talking about SNES and Genesis, and honestly, those were two great consoles. Which one would you want to start off with?
I'll start with the main one, the Super Nintendo.
Sure. Um, Super Nintendo, it was a great video game console. I mean, it had a lot of great games. The best 2D Mario and Super Mario All Stars plus Super Mario World. The best 2D Zelda and A Link to the Past. The best 2D Metroid and Super Metroid. The best
How
2D
about
Turtles.
the best Power Ranger games on there too?
Oh yeah, you had the best Ninja Turtles beat 'em up, the best Power Rangers beat 'em up. Um,
Mortal Kombat 2 was good on there. The port of it, the second Mortal Kombat,
yeah. I
it was
mean,
better than the first. Was the first one was just friggin' you're punching like dust almost. That's all it was.
yeah. You know, Super Nintendo did make its mistakes in the earlier parts, which let Sega outbeat them for the longest time. But Super Nintendo eventually beat them. But it was okay that Super Nintendo didn't sell as much as the NES because there was competition, and competition is good.
It's healthy too. Have a have competition. You have back in this time you had the SNES versus the Sega Genesis, which were two 16-bit consoles that had their advantages and their disadvantages too.
Yeah, they had variety, which made them feel different.
Yeah.
Unlike the PlayStation and Xboxes of today, which pretty much feel similar.
What I liked about the Super Nintendo, you had Turtles in Time on there. You had the Team and T Tournament Fighters. That was a pretty good
Yeah,
game, but it
that
was
was
hard.
very underrated. It was hard, but it was underrated. It had a lot of good fighting games too. The Street Fighter 2, the three Mortal Kombats, even though the first one didn't have blood,
What
but it
about
was
Clay
still a good
Fighter?
game. Yeah, Clay Fighter was vastly underrated. It had the best 2D Final Fantasy in my opinion.
No one talks about Clay Fighter that much anymore.
Yeah, it was very underrated game. There was a Clay Fighter 64, 63 and a half game, which I thought was honestly better, but and it had the Boogerman and Earthworm Jim in it, who were developed by the same creators.
Yeah. I think what the Super Nintendo had, you had T2, the arcade game on there. That was on the Midway. That was on the arcade machines back in the day with Midway. They had that on there. You also had various games that were being arcade versions of those games being ported over to the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, um, you had a lot of decent ports too. But like, what's for Super Nintendo? Let's talk about exclusive, and to finish it all off, we can talk about like ports. Would you be okay with that, Jordan?
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of good games. The best. I used to think the best 2D Castlevania. Granted, I did change my mind to Symphony of the Night on Saturn and PS1 when I played it. That game is great.
Symphony Night was just the bomb.
Yeah, but it had, but both still had a good 2D Castlevania and Castlevania Bloodlines and Castlevania 4, Super Castlevania 4. Granted, I thought Super Castlevania 4 was the superior one, but Bloodline was still a good game regardless.
Yeah. I
You
like Super Castlevania 4 because you had the whip and you just friggin' you felt like you were in control. You can whip in different various directions. It was much better and the gameplay was more fluid and smoother.
Yeah, and you know what? Fuck it. We're just gonna talk about however we want to talk about the SNES and Genesis. Both are just such great consoles. Like, I thought the best 2D Sonic game was Sonic and Knuckles, but it had the four Sonic games,
Yep.
the original four Sonic games, one, two, three, and Knuckles. Um,
Spinball wasn't too bad. It was alright. It was a
yeah,
nice
Spinball
little.
was, yeah, it was a nice little unique spin-off game. It was kind of like Mega Man Soccer in a way.
Mega Man Soccer, yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh my
didn't even
gosh.
know that was a game for a long time. Um,
Uh, what the I know what the Genesis had. They had RoboCop versus the Terminator. That one was good.
oh
And
yeah.
you also had I like what the Super Nintendo has. They have like Super Metroid, Mario, Zelda. You
There
have
was a
Star
Ninja
Fox.
Gaiden Trilogy collection. What about Contra? There was a Super Contra 3 on the
Yep.
Super Nintendo, and on the Sega Genesis we had Contra Hard Corps. Both great games,
Yes.
and
Both
honestly,
hard.
those two
Both hard.
are.
Both hard as fuck though, but they were great games though.
And honestly, I thought Super Contra 3 was hands down the best Contra.
Yep.
Contra Hard Corps is a very close second, though. You had the two Aladdin games, both great, and they were different. They weren't like a port of the same game, like the Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo game. They're both different. I mean, and I know this is a very unpopular opinion, but I honestly preferred the Super Nintendo version. I just thought the gameplay was a lot smoother, and don't get me wrong, the Genesis game was great. The Genesis
Yeah.
Aladdin, I loved the Genesis Aladdin. And I grew up more on the Super Nintendo version of it. So
You also had on the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo was Earthworm Jim. That was good too.
oh yeah, Earthworm Jim. And yeah, I do prefer the Earthworm Jim on Sega Genesis because, it had an extra level, which I really enjoyed.
Which is good. It gets more to the game. It's more complete.
More complete, more variety. Um what else was there? Yeah, Earthworm Jim was just a great game.
Yes. You also on the Sega Genesis you had the Punisher on there, the Punisher game.
Oh yeah, you had Mickey Mania. That was
Yeah.
on both games. That was really fun. You
Super.
also had Goof Troop, the
Yeah.
Goof Troop game on
Like
Super Nintendo.
Sega had Streets of Rage, and SNES had Final Fight.
Yeah, or Sega had Final, or not Fantasy Star, and yeah, Super Nintendo had Final Fantasy. Super Nintendo had Fire Emblem, while Sega had Shining Force. Like that's what I really liked about Sega, because if they didn't have something that the competitor had, like as a third party exclusive or first party even, they would make a competitor to it. Like,
Yeah.
we already brought up three examples.
They
You
would
had
make
two,
their own variation of it almost.
yeah. We also had the last Alex Kidd game as a launch title in Genesis, and Genesis had backwards compatibility with the Master System. That
That's
was
good.
great. That was awesome.
You know what I liked about the Genesis? You also had Sonic, you had Streets of Rage. You also had a little puzzle game called Columns. Columns wasn't too bad. It was like
Yeah,
Sega's
the
answer to
Tetris.
Tetris.
Yeah, Sega's answer to Tetris, and to me, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine was like their answer to Dr. Mario because it was the two Doctor puzzle games. of the main series.
Oh,
But you had a lot of ports that were on both versions: Street Fighter 2, the three Mortal Kombat games.
Ultimate was on the Genesis.
Yeah, and Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
I thought
that's
Ultimate was the best of the best.
Ultimate. You had the ninjas, you had Reptile, you had Scorpion, you had a bunch of them. It was like, holy frig, it was good.
hmm It was like the updated Mortal Kombat 3.
Yeah,
Especially since, honestly, I wasn't the biggest fan of Mortal Kombat 3, but it did have my favorite gameplay style, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have Scorpion in the first version, but the Ultimate Mortal Kombat version made up for it.
yeah. They had Sub Zero, but they had the classic Sub Zero, not the unmasked Sub Zero. They had the old school Sub Zero in it.
Yeah. Um, what else? What else was there? And yeah, Super Nintendo had the Super Game Boy, where you could play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games,
Yeah, the
which
Sega
was
had the Sega Game Gear too. There.
yeah, the Game Gear, or the Sega Nomad, where you could play Sega Genesis games on the go.
Yes, that'd be cool.
That would be cool. That actually existed, right?
Yeah, do you have that? That's good.
Yeah, but it's okay if you never heard of it, because that was just too good. I mean, when I first heard the Sega Nomad, I was like, okay, this is too good to be true. That
Yeah,
alone just showed how great Sega Genesis was.
I know Jen mentioned something about it there, but the thing with the Nomad, it didn't have a reset button when we was reviewing X-Men there.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That
Now I'm
was the
never
one
going to come
problem
back to me
with.
a little bit there.
Yeah, that was the one problem with it.
Yeah, it was a flaw.
You had the X-Men games. There was one on Super Nintendo, by Capcom. Let me look it up right now.
Okay.
Okay. Um, it was the X. Oh, you also had Spider-Man and Kingpin on the Sega Genesis. That was
Oh,
really
that one
cool.
too. That one was interesting.
Yeah, very underrated. Turtles Hyperstone Heist. That was that not as good.
Not as good
I'm
as Turtles
sorry.
in Time, but it was still cool to see, though.
Yeah, it was so cool to see at least a version of Turtles in Time at least be on Genesis.
Like that
There
one
was
is okay. Go ahead.
I found out the X-Men game was X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. That was like really fun.
That was good. I think Turtles and Turtles on the Genesis was very underrated. I find that one's very underrated. I like it there a lot there, but that one
Yeah,
is
I
very
liked it a lot.
refined. That one's underrated. I like it there. I liked both the Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis version as well because
hmm
we're both very different.
Yeah, that's what made it like really good. And oh yeah, there was the two X-Men games on Sega. Yeah, the two X-Men Sega games. Those were amazing. But yeah, I like Super Mario All Stars and Super Mario World because it had my five favorite 2D Mario games:
Yeah.
Mario 1, Mario the Lost Levels, Mario 2, Doki Doki Panic, Super Mario Brothers 3, and Super Mario World.
When Nintendo had the Super Nintendo, that's the time when they introduced new franchises, but they were good. They had
F Zero, or
F-Zero, yes, and Star Fox too.
yeah, Star Fox, yeah. F Zero and Star Fox were just two amazing games, and the first ones were phenomenal for their time. And when they made sequels like X and GX and 64 and Assault, the games just got better and better as they went on.
They improved over time there. They also
Yeah,
have Star Fox 64 on their 3DS there.
yeah. Well, I just said Star Fox 64 because um, there was like a DC and Marvel fighting game on both of them, from what I recall.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Like before we had Injustice, we had that one. Where you could play as Darkseid, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, Aquaman.
Yeah.
Which one was the? Oh, it was the War of the Gems. That was
Oh, there you go. That's a good one.
yeah, Marvel Superhero War of the Gems. That was a good game.
Yeah. I think what the overall the Super Nintendo they had. What else? They had a lot of stuff there. It's so hard to. You had the multi tap that was pretty cool. You had a bunch of other stuff with it. You had part like games you can actually play with friends and you have over at the house. It was actually a time before multiplayer was multiplayer. It was pretty
Yeah,
cool actually.
really, really cool.
Yeah, Bomberman on there.
Oh yeah, the Bomberman games. You had Sega Genesis had Mega Bomberman, and Super Nintendo had the Super Bomberman games. There was also Battletoads, where Sega had the original Battletoads, and honestly, I thought it was better than the NES version. And Super Nintendo had Battletoads and Battle Maniacs.
Battle Maniacs was very good. I played that game before.
Yeah,
It
that
was very
was
fun though. Just the music is so damn catchy though. It's very
yeah,
pumps you up though.
like do 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 do.
Ready to kick some ass there?
Yeah,
Beating the shit out of those pig guys there. Oh
and
my
it
god.
was the first game where you could play as Pimple, and honestly, Pimple was my favorite out of the three toads, rats, Rajzitz, and Pimple. And
Yeah,
I really hope the Killer Instinct. I mean, besides Killer Instinct and Rare Replay, I hope the Battletoads make a comeback one day.
they should. They should.
Yeah,
Rare Replay, they included Battletoads in Battletoads Arcade, but what they should do, honestly, they want to do it, they can have Battle Maniacs on the Xbox One. Like a HD re-release of that, doesn't matter. But it would be cool, but they would sell it at a cheap price, like $30 or something, or maybe 20 at most there.
or have a downloadable version of the HD Battletoads collections. The first one, the one on Game Boy, the yeah, Battletoads and Rangar's World. Um, There was Battletoads, yeah, Battle Maniacs, the arcade one, and Battletoads and Double Dragon.
That's a good one, Battletoads and Double Dragon, that's very good. Those were,
Yeah,
like,
that was yeah, Battletoads and Double Dragon and the arcade one and Battle Maniacs and the original were the best ones in my opinion. The Game Boy one's good, but it's honestly the weakest, especially since there's only one player and no two because there was the whole Game Boy linking thing that
yeah.
they didn't use.
I like the fact that Battletoads and Double Dragon, the thing about it, you had two franchises meshed together. You played as the Battletoads characters and the Double Dragons. The music was good, there was very good music, heavy metal, which I like, and that's the stuff we like because it's very good pumping tunes.
Hmm. Um, yeah. Um, what other games? How long has this been going on? Okay. It's been going on for a decent 18 minutes. That's not bad. I guess we can continue on for a bit longer.
Sure.
So, um, what other one was like really good? Another Super Nintendo Sega Genesis game. Oh, did I mention the Ninja Gaiden trilogy on Super Nintendo? That was
There,
great.
that's a
Oh
good one.
yeah, Mega Man 7 was so underrated, alright? I see people showing that game all the time, like, oh, it's no like it's 16-bit, that game sucks, and I'm like, dude, that just proves that you want shitty graphics. Like, this was a time where you needed 16-bit, you idiots. I mean,
Stupid idiots.
like,
You just made the list of Jericho.
yeah, I mean, like freaking Castlevania 4 was 16-bit and so was Contra 3. I mean, how come those games you're okay with them being transferred into 16-bit? Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Link to the Past, Bomberman. How come you're okay with all those games being transferred to 16-bit, but not Mega Man? I know Mega Man had that great 8-bit feel, but still, so did the other games.
Yeah. What was
Um, Oh yeah, and then Sega Genesis had the Wily Wars, where you
Yeah.
could play in games. I was kind of disappointed it wasn't the first six Mega Man games, but I think it was like hardware limitations.
Okay. I
But
think
the
what they
first three
had
were my
with
favorites, though.
I
I'll
think
have to.
with the Mega Man X series was very good on the Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah, Mega Man X. That was some awesome stuff. The original three Mega Man X games, those were just phenomenal. I mean, I wasn't a fan of them at first because I was like, well, what is this? I wasn't used to this kind of Mega Man. But when I later got onto it, I honestly started liking it better than the original Mega Man series.
Yep. Those are those games or those games Capcom should re-release those games there on the
Like,
collection there.
like
I
I
know they
remember
already.
Korea said that he always saw it as Mega Man X versus Sonic and not Mario versus Sonic.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Corey always took an interesting views on stuff, which is
Yep.
why they called him the Taste God for a reason.
You know I
You
like.
also had some good Dragon Ball Z fighting games on there.
Yep. I think what was on. I think they had some good stuff there. You had a bunch of stuff on. Sega had their. Sega had great stuff there. It was just good overall.
Yeah. Though the thing that honestly made the Super Nintendo beat the Sega Genesis for me. Oh, and Sega Genesis had this like really cool first-person shooter called Zero Tolerance, and Super Nintendo had Doom and Wolfenstein,
Yep.
just for two first-person shooters. But what made the Nintendo just barely beat the Genesis for me was the Sega CDM32X. Like, oh god, those were horrible.
Those
Like,
are
what
just.
was the point
I
of those?
see.
Like, why didn't
I
you put that into like the set instead of putting your time in to make two add-ons? Why not make the Sega Saturn?
I seen EVGen's video on the Sega CD.
Yeah, and 32X. So speaking of which, I was like watching a gaming history video and um Donkey Kong Country Trilogy. Yeah, those games were great. All three. One, two, and even though this one's the weakest, still good. Three. Two was the best. The first one was great. But three, it was the weakest, but it was still a really fun game.
The Donkey Kong trilogy was good on the Super Nintendo. The Country series there.
Yeah. You also had Vector Man on Sega Genesis, which was, their response to Donkey Kong Country.
Yep. What else? Yeah, yeah. On Sega, you had Rystar.
Yeah, Rystar. Oh yeah, Super Nintendo had Yoshi's Island.
Yep, they had some good stuff there. Did Sega have like a multi tap like Nintendo had, or no?
And yeah, well, they had a six-button controller.
I know they had the 6 button controller. It was like almost like an arcade stick almost there.
Hmm. Oh, and another good game was Super Mario RPG. That was hands down the best Mario RPG to me.
Yeah. It also had SimCity too.
Yeah, the only other game Mario RPGs that come close are the original Mario and Luigi, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Those are the only two that come close to Super Mario RPG.
Like Mario and that there. I don't know how he does it, but he works with most of the stuff there, Mario.
Yeah, he. That's what I really liked about the Mario games. Like, bet he could work in anything. A 2D game, a 2.5D game, a 3D overworld game, a 3D linear game.
Fighting game,
Yeah, a fighting game if you count Super Smash Brothers.
racing.
Racing with Mario Kart. You RPGs, party games. I mean, that's what just what made Mario great. He just fit into anything.
Yes.
I
Odyssey
mean,
looks interesting though.
yeah, Odyssey looks very fun, especially since we haven't had a open world Mario game since Sunshine, which had questionable reviews. I thought it was a decent game myself. Like I enjoyed it, but it did have flaws, and it was like out of all the 3D Mario games, 3D World, 3D Land, Galaxy 1 and 2, 64DS. I mean, I thought it was the weakest of
Yep.
them all.
What was another like thing with Mario? Sonic had some thing with Sonic. He just worked as a platformer, but when Sonic had like tried to do other things, but it kind of failed there.
But he at least tried. That's why I
Yeah.
respect. I prefer Sonic over Mario. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Nothing against Mario. I just praise Mario, but Sonic, he just was better. He had attitude, and he just had a lot cooler characters. Knuckles, Tails, Shadow, Silver, Eggman. I mean, just had a lot of cool characters.
But the thing I liked about Sonic was Sega All Stars Racing.
Oh yeah, Sega All Stars Racing. That was
that
awesome.
works. That's the shit.
Yeah, that was the shit. And exclusively in the Xbox version, they had a Banjo Kazooie, and I think there was like a specific character in the PlayStation version. I think it was Sackboy.
Yeah. I got the Xbox One 360 version there. I got that from a birthday though.
Yeah.
My brother gave me that from a birthday though for a game there. It was a good birthday gift though.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think the first one's better than the second one. Second one wasn't too bad, but I like the first one more.
Yeah. Same here.
Because you had a
I
lot of.
thought Sega and Mario All Stars was better than Mario Kart, to be honest.
Oh yes, man. Mario Kart 8 was good though.
Yeah, Mario Kart 8 was good, but honestly, the best one to me was Double Dash.
Double Dash was good.
Hmm. 8's a very close second.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're kind of talking about just Sega and Nintendo altogether, but what else can we talk about? We pretty much described the entire Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis library because there's so
Uh,
many great games. There's a lot of hidden gems too.
yes.
So I mean, there's always a lot of good hidden gems you can check out. And Sega and Nintendo will never live up to what they
Yes.
once used to.
So I think my machine was on. I was watching the stream.
Yeah, mine was doing the same thing. It's okay.
Okay, that's what it was.
Um, but yeah, Sega just I just wanted them to give Sonic and Mario a long break and focus on their other franchises though.
Yes.
Like those franchises are I know they're the flagship franchises, but don't you think they're getting a bit too much attention?
And
After Project Sonic 2017 and Mario Odyssey, I hope those two do honestly, get a break.
there was Rock and Roll Racing was a hidden gem.
Oh yeah, that was a fucking hidden gem. Another one was this beat 'em up where you played as like old ancient characters. It was Super Nintendo. That was really good. Oh, there was also Golden Axe and Altered Beast. How could I fucking forget about Golden Axe and Altered fucking Beast?
Yeah. You also had on Super Nintendo, you had Demon's Crest.
Yeah, Demon's Crest on Sega Genesis had Toe Jam and Earl.
Yeah. Yeah, Metal Combat.
Yeah, what else was there on Sega? Oh yeah, Sega Genesis, Bonzo Brothers.
Yes.
That was a really good one. There was Fantasy Star. I mean, not Fantasy Star. Fantasy Zone. That was like really fun. Shoot 'em up. Um, but yeah, I mean, I probably did forget about a lot of others, and call me out on it. Ugh.
Well, that's we named all the good games though.
Yeah, WWF wrestling games for the Sega
Yes.
Super Nintendo. Those were fun.
WrestleMania the arcade game.
Yeah, WrestleMania the arcade game was the best 2D wrestling game of WWF ever, hands down. Period.
Wild Guns.
Hmm. Yeah, Wild Guns was really fun. That was on Sega and Super Nintendo. Ugh, Super Double Dragon on Super Nintendo and Double Dragon 5 was in.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Yes, Ghouls and Ghosts was on Sega Genesis, and it was Super Ghost and God was on the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
Yeah. Capcom just had a lot of great franchises. My favorite ones were Resident Evil, um, Mega Man, Street Fighter, the
Devil May
ones you
Cry.
mentioned, yeah, Devil May Cry, Ghouls and Ghosts. Those were just my favorites, and good Disney games.
Yes. I don't. I
Um,
like Resident Evil 6, but I think the thing is they killed it with that one there. Honestly,
I was mainly a fan of the remake on GameCube, the sequel, and 0 and 4. Those were the
yeah.
best ones,
I think
easily.
Resident Evil 7 they went with a different direction. They're trying to go back to the horror up, but they have a hillbilly family, like almost like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They have these molded enemies too with it there.
I haven't really gotten around to playing that Resident Evil one yet, but I heard it got a 7.7 out of 7, which was good. And some people are disappointed in the score, but it's a decent score. I don't know
It's a
why
good
people are
score.
getting mad
It's a
at
good
it.
score. Fuck, it's not a 4 or a 3
Or 5,
or a 5. Yeah.
or 2, or 1.
Or that's even better if it was a 2 or 1. But the thing is, I think I liked about. I'm gonna have to get Resident Evil 7 because I want to review that. I want to talk about that game sometime, and I want to do various other stuff there and other stuff out there.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it's overall like there was
Overall, both were great consoles. Had a lot of great games, first and third party. You know, if they, say Super Nintendo had a lot of great games. Sega had a lot of great responses that are arguably better. Arguably, not pretty much better, but arguably better. I mean, they both had a lot of great ports of each other.
Punch Out was
Great
good.
versions. Yeah, Super Punch Out was really good. Oh yeah, Super Punch Out. Why would I forget about Super Punch Out? There's probably a lot of others we're leaving. Oh yeah, the best 2D Kirby, Kirby
Yeah,
Superstar Ultra.
Splatterhouse 2 and 3.
The Splatterhouse sequels were on there. Yeah, a whole bunch of others. Super Bonk. I mean, this was like the time where how could you go wrong? Konami back then used to be pretty good. You had the
Konami
Ninja
was the
Turtles.
shit back then. That was the thing. They actually
Yeah, the
freaking
Ninja Turtles games, Castlevania, Contra, Silent Hill, and Metal Gear.
yeah. Also, Konami had Zombies Eat My Neighbors there.
Yeah, Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
That one was underrated. I don't care what people say. These freaking idiots and that they're actually like that game or Irate Gamer and all these other freaking people that don't know what they're talking about. That game, Zombie Ate My Neighbors, is hard, yes, but it's a hidden gem.
It's really fun. People should play it.
Yeah, I don't listen to freaking Irate Gamer. The guy is just doing dildo videos and that there. He's not even doing anything anymore.
Yeah, now he's trying to be like a ghost hunter now.
Yeah, he's trying to be a Ghostbuster.
Like, freaking, we know ghosts aren't fucking real. We're not little children. Alright? We
Oh,
know
I
ghosts aren't
imagine,
real.
imagine if someone trolled them and actually put a blanket over a machine and actually acted like a ghost there.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet.
That'd be funny though.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, even Zombies Eat My Neighbors was on the Genesis too.
Yeah, that was on Genesis as well. What else was like there? Well, we're going over half an hour. Maybe we have like a couple more minutes to talk, but I think I'm gonna
Yeah,
end it here off.
all right, sounds good.
So, again, Super Nintendo. I mean, I thought the Super Nintendo had the better controller and the better graphics. Don't get me wrong, Sega Genesis had a great controller and had great graphics. But oh yeah, Batman Returns was pretty good. The beat 'em up,
The
of
Adventures of
course.
Batman and Robin were very.
Yeah,
Those two
those
games
ones
are
were
very
my
vastly
favorites.
different there.
Yeah, Batman Returns and Batman and Robin Adventures. Yeah, those. Yeah, Adventures of Batman and Robin, Batman Returns. Those were awesome. I mean, I preferred Super Nintendo on both versions, but still great. Super Death and Return of Superman was vastly underrated.
People should talk about that game more.
Yeah, people should. I mean, I know Superman barely gets any good games. Superman 64. But
People talk more about Superman 64 than anything else there.
yeah, but
This is
come
how
on.
knowingly bad it is.
I mean, Death and Return of Superman was good, and the one on GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, that one was amazing.
Yeah, good stuff.
And yeah, I think Spider-Man and Venom, the Maximum Carnage game, that was
Oh, fuck.
amazing.
Oh, fuck. Figure almost forgot about that one.
Yeah, that was like the best Spider-Man beat 'em up ever.
That was the bomb. I like that beat 'em up. It was very good gameplay. Friggin' just overall, it just screams nostalgia badass there.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna end it off here.
Let's do our Let's end it off there.
Yeah,
Give our
the
final thoughts.
ending. Overall, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, my two favorite video game console of all time, and I prefer Super Nintendo for my own reasons I already explained. But this is Perfect Welch signing out. Jordan,
Killer J signing out and do some and also signing out and see you guys later and spread the good taste, guys, and play some awesome games.
on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Later.
Definitely for sure.
Peace.
Peace.